He doesn't give a lot of interviews because mainstream media is dying. He wants to talk about that today. They twist everything you do. They're a bunch of critic snots that hate artists and people that, quite frankly, are smarter than them. And that's what social justice warrior crap is. It is the elite turning loose on the real intellectuals and artists and liberals, real liberals, turning loose basically fascists that call themselves liberals to attack anyone that gets outside the lines. And that's what's been happening. We've talked a lot about it behind the scenes. You've told me amazing stuff that I've talked to top executives that if they've confirmed, talked to other big rock stars, they've said, yeah, no, that's true. But you're one of the only people, because they go after Dave Mustaine. He had courage, but notice he hadn't been political in a while. I talk to him all the time, great guy. You still go public, even though when you come on, they come after you in hundreds of publications. But they're out of bullets. They're discredited. I mean, it's an honor. So I'm going to try to shut up because I get really excited when we hang out because your energy level is really good and it resonates with me, to talk about the state of the world. But you were really, during the last 5 minutes when we were on break, crystallizing so much. So I don't want to repeat what you said. I want to give you the floor, Billy Corgan, to break down here in studio in Austin, Texas, founder of Smashing Pumpkins, so many other successful bands. What is it, 40 million albums sold? You've got Smashing Pumpkins, Nexus.com. Just, really the last decade exposing global tyranny, or longer. You've been doing this for more than 2 decades. Where are we currently, in your view, as a species? Where is the planet? Why is everybody talking about the fact that they see a quickening happening? That's A. And then B, you said, look, I'm on a mission. This is what I want to talk about today. So you've got the floor. Great to see you.
Thank you, buddy. I don't know how to follow that. You're so kind. Let's start here. For a while, I've been thinking about making a documentary about America, and it went from an idea that was maybe going to go with the Pumpkins album to now we're talking about trying to find a partner to make it a sort of a series and what's like the new model of television, like the 8-part, like the, there was that, everybody was talking about the making of a murder, it's like the kind of the new version of TV. It's like binge watching 8-part, so we're looking at that model. So that's exciting because that takes it out of the typical 90-minute thing. So I traveled across the country in an RV writing songs with a buddy of mine who's a vet, 2 tours of Iraq, and another friend of mine who's a professional wrestler, good friends, and went around and interviewed a bunch of people about America and tried to have a conversation with people above the political discourse and above the cultural discourse, which is very, very difficult because the way most people relate these days is it starts with Obama this or Trump that, or did you see what so-and-so said about somebody else? Getting people to talk about America from a heartful point of view, their ancestors, which you talk about a lot. You've inspired me along that path too, to talk about their feelings about how they view America and whether the America that they grew up believing in or not believing in is real or was it ever real. And what I found, it was really fascinating because I talked to people from every type of background, that most Americans have a very shared conception of what America means. And the 2 things that I heard over and over again were opportunity and hard work. That's something they learned from their ancestors.
That's our ethos.
That is in the American DNA, I would argue. And so what is often classified as a racial component or a class component is antithetical to the foundation of the country. Is we came here to build something that was literally an opportunity. Now, when you say that, of course, there are people, start with the Native Americans, who were disenfranchised along the way. So that vision of opportunity has continued to grow. And now we've reached another critical mass point in our nation's history where is the line of expansion in terms of immigration, in terms of tolerance, in terms of welcoming, in terms of welfare sustainability, where are the lines? So talking about that more in the symbolic 250 plus year arc of the country. So
transcending the divide and conquer.
Yes.
Jamming.
Absolutely. And it's amazing how when you talk to, and I would encourage anyone to have these discussions with themselves, when you talk about what America really means to them, there's a lot of love left in people's hearts for this country. That surprised me because the general feeling is we're a nation in decline and we're about to go boom. You talk to some people and they don't think that. They think this is just another bump in the road.
The reason we're in decline is the robber barons admit they want a monopoly. They want to end prosperity. They want to end an expanding pie because they want central control. and they're scapegoating capitalism for what they're really running, crony capitalism.
Right.
And they talk about the bad things in America's past. Well, yeah, but you compare it to other systems. We had the most opportunity. We were the most rebellious. We were the most trailblazing. It didn't mean it was great, but compared to everything else, it was wonderful. Where you were born into your caste in Italy or in Japan or in China or in Germany or wherever you came from or Brazil, you had to get here where you could get out of the caste and really show who you were. I mean, let's take music. If you weren't from a rich, powerful family 200 years ago, 300 years ago in Europe, didn't matter how good you weren't going to get to write music and ever have it heard.
I would still argue that we are that country. It's so, and this is something you and I talk about. I think that you're fantastic. You often use the analogy of being the bomber over the target. Okay, so you're looking down. You see things people don't see from that vantage point, and you've invested a lot in understanding how to read those things. Your military sources, your political sources, the Roger Stones, they can give you that bird's eye read, just like I can give you the bird's eye read of culture, right?
Or Inside MTV.
You name it. I mean, been there, done that. So, and what I would say is, and where we can be helpful, I think, is when you talk about pan-national corporations, if you're in the tech world right now, your sandbox is the whole world. You're not stopping at somebody's border. And this is why even starting 5-7 years ago, you started seeing those tech companies start cutting deals with communists and fascists and whatever type of governments. Censoring, being willing to do whatever, because that's their playing field. Now, they'll sit there and wink and say, we're going to democratize the world. I think most people, and particularly your audience, know that's a bunch of BS. This is capitalism at its raw power best. You can play it however you want. You can see however you want. It's who's got a bigger gun, who's got more cojones at the table.
Well, that's right. The globalists use capitalism when it expands their power, but then at the grassroots they want communism, just like Obama said in Argentina. He said, multinationally, we're going to have capitalism. Locally, we're going to have communism.
I mean, when you have the President of the United States telling people in another country, use whatever political system works, I mean, that was a laughable moment.
You sent me a couple articles dealing with this, how President Obama is, quote, scared of Google.
Well, there was an article, I think you guys maybe even ran it the other day, about a movie producer, a gentleman who was Expendables 3, and he basically has come out and said, why is the Obama government, which is a liberal government, very in bed with Hollywood, why are they not going after the systems that help exploit movies and disenfranchise people who've invested a lot of money to make the movies, not to mention the crews and everything and all the unions involved? Why are they not protecting those people? Because the tech companies look the other way on the illegal downloading of materials. We have the technology right now to stop the transfer of illegal music or pirated music and pirated movies. They could do that tomorrow. Why don't they do it?
Because they put a code in it and the device has the code. It either lets it or not.
I'll tell you a quick funny story. I've uploaded my own songs to something, and it'll be deleted because I don't have the right to do it, because they have some automatic system that identifies the song and takes it down. I can't even put up my own music. Now, if they have systems in play to shut down my own music, and there's not a system there to identify that it's my music to use, you think they can't stop somebody from... I mean, yeah, some kid in the dark web can find it, but most users are not sophisticated tech users. They press a button, it works or it doesn't.
I said I wouldn't do this, but I'm skipping this one network break so we get more time with Billy here today. I know that causes them headaches, but we're going to skip this network break right now. For some stations out there, most stations do end up carrying all of it because this is a network break. Billy Corgan is our guest. We've got the website Smashing Pumpkins, Nexus.com. Thematically, though, let's put this out there. I mean, repeating what you said in the 5 minutes we talked before we went on air, you talked about, I said, why are you here? Well, like you talk about, we want to break the trance. How do we talk to people that are in the trance? And you're basically saying, transcend all the current labels and things. Talk about ancestors. Talk about larger themes of humanity and destiny. Let's get into where you think the world is at this current place and where you think we're going, and how do we transcend the scientific admitted mind war that the big corporations and governments admit they're using.
Perfect. Okay, let's start here. When somebody's lying to you, they have two choices when you call them out on the lie. They either lie more or they admit it, and then you deal with the damage from there. So what you've done, and many other people have done, and of course you talk to people in the entertainment community who are usually pretty awake because they're inside these systems. We're at the point now where either the lie is going to be triple, quadruple, double, whatever downed on, or it's going to break and we're going to deal with the fallout here. And the election has now become the critical mass point.
The catalyst.
When you see the forces at play, I'll use your term, uncloaking. I mean, brazen robbing of people's ability to cast their vote in a primary. When you see brazen disregard of polls, when you see AP thing that came out yesterday, 6% trust in the media.
Exactly. Let me show that.
What business model in the world would take a 6% approval rating and keep doing the same thing that they're doing? I mean, unbelievable.
Yeah, what restaurant would stay open with a 6% approval rating?
Right. So what does that tell you? That says that they're not there to give you the truth. They are there as a propaganda arm of a much bigger force. Is it the U.S. government? Is it some big tech company? Who knows? Doesn't matter.
And they're a facade that's already collapsed. They just can't admit it because that would be to admit defeat.
That's what I'm saying. The minute they admit the lie, it all crumbles. So they have to keep just doubling down like a bad gambler who thinks, if I can just hit this one bet, I'm going to win all my money.
So what was the term you used before we went live? Because it really crystallized it. You said, I mean, it was more than it's coming to a head, it's peaking, or?
Well, look, the Republican convention is in 90 days. And that is the zeitgeist moment. That's the zeitgeist.
Everybody's got to be there.
I don't know, because listen, we live in a digital construct as much, which is why I think you were so prescient in calling this the InfoWar. Yes, I mean boots on the ground in the literal sense of the word.
How dare you touch that microphone? Slap it around if you want.
Boots on the ground.
Corgan abuses electronics. That's sorry. Go ahead.
No, but I believe in political dissent when it's focused on real objectives, right? If you feel like you need to be there to let the world know that you care about something and you want to peacefully be involved in the process, I have no problem with that. But let's go back to what I think is the more salient point. Most people, especially listeners to this program, are conversant in the themes that you deal with daily: the mind control, the propagandizing, the willingness for governments who are supposed to be our elected representatives to literally disregard poll after poll after poll that says they want this and that.
And they've now reached that point where it's a total wall of lies. And they're busy buying armored vehicles and building command bunkers. I mean, like they know it's all going down.
Yeah. So if you're on the side of the fence that we're obviously on, which is this is all very transparent to us, and you accept that probably 25 to 35% of the population is either asleep or doesn't want to be woken up. So what can you say to the people who are awake, are engaged, and wonder what they can do? I think that's the more salient point, and I think that's more helpful. Because so I'll start with something that I tell people when I talk to every day I meet with fans before the show, and they often ask me, like, what can I do? You have to stop clicking on things. You have to there's the
stop feeding the propaganda media.
Right. Okay. There's the old saying, vote with your feet. Okay. What did that mean?
Vote with your dollars. Vote with your time.
Yes. So when you click on something that you think is free, it is not free. You are in essence disenfranchising your own power by giving somebody else power because they want you to click on that stupid thing because it actually means something. Now that system, as the article came out the other day about BuzzFeed kind of hitting the wall, we're seeing now the fatigue of the clickbait society. I mean, I'm somebody who they make headlines out of the most stupid stuff. It's unbelievable. They literally will troll everything I will say and they make headlines. And I say to people all the time, why do you think they're making headlines? They're using me as a character.
I wish you'd tell people, because I know you're a really private guy, some of the inside baseball you told me, because I've talked to so many other big rock stars from the early 90s, mid-90s, when you all get called in, they tell you the new direction, you and a few others say, hell no, and then suddenly they won't play you. I mean, it literally comes down to that level of control with people that won't sell out to the system. Now, that's why I know that George Clooney and all these other people actually know what's going on. Leonardo DiCaprio, they get up there and say what they're supposed to, or they are blackballed. I mean,
let's look at it from a slightly empathetic point of view. And I'm not here to say anything about it.
Oh, I'm not bashing them either. They're slaves. You not a slave. You stood up for and been. You're one of the few that's continued to be successful, though, despite their support. But I mean, just the last 20 years on air, they just constantly attack you randomly for nothing because they're scared of you.
I don't think it's that. I wouldn't go to that level because I don't think that people are that sentient and conscious.
Well, I mean, the minions don't know. They just know they're green lighted to attack you.
They're part of a system. It's like nobody wants to admit that they're dumb. Okay? Nobody wants to admit they're dumb. Who wants to say, yeah, I'm dumb? Okay? Most people in the media do not see themselves as part of some bigger cabal. They you know, you used to call them the trendies. They like to feel they're part of a cool.
They're just camp followers. They're just into this cynical, mean attitude.
Right. Look, I had an instance the other day. I haven't talked about this yet. I was in New York. I was playing some shows, and I looked at the table over, and there was Michelle Fields, the young woman who is in the whole thing with Corey Lewandowski in the Trump campaign. And she was sitting there with her boyfriend, and I recognized her. Now, it's hard not to stare at somebody when they're in the zeitgeist. I mean, this woman, at that point, whatever it was a week ago, that was when that whole thing was peaking. Is Lewandowski going to be indicted? When you look at an actual human being, you know what I'm saying?
You humanize them.
Yes. She's not a symbol. She's a young woman sitting there, you know. She is who she is. I don't know her. I don't, you know, it's not my moment to judge. It's my moment to look and say, there's a real person who has a real belief. I don't think that's somebody who's walking around feeling, at least this is my own intuition, that they're part of something. Some master plan. I don't think it's that sophisticated. They like to go with a particular flow.
Sure, she's a drama queen. She wants to be successful. So he does grab her, so she escalates it and goes along with the hype. She jumps in the river.
Yes, the opportunity exists to be rewarded for something, and they don't realize that they're actually sacrificing themselves at a sort of more satanic altar, if that is, you know, just to be a bit dramatic about it. In essence, you don't realize that your participation in a particular way. So if you talk,
it's just like clicking.
Yes, if you talk to the individual. Okay, let's take the most empathetic point of view. This young woman felt in her heart's heart, that she was assaulted. Okay, let's take that as complete truth. The minute she crossed into certain territories, she becomes somebody else's pawn. I doubt you could sit her here and she would tell you she's a pawn. At some point, I woke up and realized that I was a pawn. And so my natural human instinct was, I don't want to be anybody's bitch here. I don't want to be a pawn, excuse my French. I don't want to participate in something that I know will ultimately hurt my children and their children.
You want to be conscious, free will, not a robot.
So the point is, can you exist truthfully in a system that is set up to disenfranchise you and disempower you at every conceivable level? So let's take the soccer mom. She gets up in the morning, she drops the kids off, she comes home, she puts on her iPad, and she's clicking through, and here's Apple's sorting all her news. So she's already one layer in, is already under control. Now, does that mom think she's being controlled? Of course not.
No. What she reads is already being given to her by the New York Times or Apple. She's already being brought into a world, and she doesn't even know it.
Right. I have friends who all they do is scroll Apple News. Okay? They have no idea that there's sources like you and other people who can give them a different perspective, nor are they curious. Okay? And so I love it. I get these people, my friends, you know, they're in my home, and they start spouting literal talking points from the Clinton.
I've had them. I've had liberal family who aren't liberal, you know, they're more just kind of modern, trendy or whatever, over, and they see me on my big iPad Pro or whatever. They're like, oh, iPad Pro. And I'm like looking at the New York Times and Apple News and Google News. They go, you read the New York Times? We thought you were right. Like suddenly I was this intellectual. And I went, I try to look at everything. This is all sorted to different psychology types. I also go to Defense One and read what the Pentagon's being told. And they just go, oh, like you go different places?
I literally can tell my friends when they come at me with those talking points, I'm like, oh, you read HuffPo.
Yeah, exactly. Or you're a BuzzFeed or you're a Reddit.
So, again, taking it back to the street level.
Show them how they're we got to go to break, but go ahead.
That's a perfect place to leave it.
All right, I get what you're saying. Billy Corgan's thought a lot about how to get people out of their trance. He's talked to millions of fans over the years, hundreds of thousands on the ground. How do you get people that are already caught in a trance out of it? How do you break the trance? I mean, that's the question. Billy Corgan, how do you break the trance of the modern sorcerers that have enslaved our planet? Briefly, we are listener supported. When you buy a Hillary for President shirt, you're funding our operation. You're promoting the First Amendment. For what she did in Benghazi, the rest of it. They've tried to intimidate people that speak out against her. It's important to exercise that free speech. Molon Labe, come and take it shirts. We also have our top nootropic, Brain Force, 45% off retail right now. And that will end tomorrow. I'm extending it one day, InfoWarsLife.com.
Hey, can I jump in here?
Yeah, sure.
You don't know this, but I use a lot of your products. I literally couldn't tour like I tour without your products. I mean, I'm doing a free commercial here. The products are fantastic.
I didn't know this was going to happen. Well, please tell folks about them because look, I set out to come up with the least expensive, super high quality stuff. I've got 3 big top organic firms in the country, you know, the top names, Threshold, you name it. And they go, no, nobody else comes to us with formulas with this much stuff in it. It's all just about hype. We want people to put out stuff like this. And so we really have tried to put out the very best stuff. What's been your experience?
I use X2 iodine every day. Fantastic. Keeps me from getting sick on the road. I've used Super Male Vitality. I use probably about 4 or 5 of your products fairly regularly. I mean, I can say this from my heart, the highest quality. I've been sort of on the healthy side of living for about 15 years. It's very hard to find products of this quality on the open market.
Well, thank you.
I'm really proud of you because I think that's been one of the best things you've done.
Well, thank you. I mean, not that I'm Mr. Healthy. I got where I didn't care about myself, got depressed about the New World Order, kind of saw myself as expendable, gained almost 100 pounds, was just falling apart. And as I slowly got back into health and stuff, I was trying to find the best, you know, vitamins, minerals. Plus, I had sponsors that were doing it.
And you know, it's very difficult on the open market. What's the right vitamin? You know what I'm saying?
Well, here's why they do it. With California standards so high that almost nothing's perfectly clean. I mean, there's more lead in the air, as you know, than there is in, you know, in a tomato. That it's hard to, so all the time we don't have the product and are sold out because we'll get batches of supposed stuff. It's contaminated. So we have to sit back, return it, sometimes get the lawyers back and forth. So that's why we're sold out half the time. So I get why companies don't put out perfect stuff because you basically can't. The planet's so contaminated.
But again, I think that this part of your, to use your term, operation, I think is really, really great because this is, we're sort of in this subject anyway. How do we support people to get themselves right mind, body, soul, so they can fight this, you know, we all go through this. We look sometimes, like if you're people like you and I, and we can read the bigger sort of zeitgeist stuff because we're in it. You know, it's oppressive. You know, there are days you wake up and you're just depressed. You just want to go outside and have a good time and play catch with somebody.
I agree.
You don't want to sit around and think about how somebody's, you know what in you every second of every day. And that's the part is when you get angry, you know what I mean? And I think this is very important. When you get angry sometimes, you know, maybe it's not the most flattering thing to do, but what you are doing is you are helping break that trance. You're saying, this is the proper reaction to what is happening to me as an individual, not as a public personality, as an individual, as a father. This is what I'm feeling when I'm looking down the road at what I'm seeing.
Exactly. I'm trying to respect people and show how I really feel. So as I'm upset, I'm panicked, it feels claustrophobic. After I've read 100 articles where they're just throwing it in our face, I really blow up because it's real.
And let's not forget, there's a lot of mocking behind that, which kind of also serves up the social justice warrior stuff. And there's a mocking tone there. If you think somebody's dumb or uneducated or a bigot or something, mocking them is usually not the best way to get through to them.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Well, specifically, again, Billy Corgan's our guest here. We were really getting into some hardcore issues during the break. We're talking about social justice warriors who I fall down to their level because they're so hateful, they're so dumbed down, but they are victims brought up by this culture. I'm not, either young people are super awake or they're super dumbed down. The statistics show lower IQs, lower brain activity, near trance state. That's mainstream news. We were talking about that, but still when they're spitting in your face, attacking your reporters who are really real liberals like Rob Dew and people. And these are real liberals who really love everybody, really care about everybody, really care about free speech, really care about open elections. And there's little arrogant 20-year-olds spitting in their faces, screaming at them, you hate me because I'm a tranny. And it's just this made up thing in their head when we don't hate them. What do you, I mean, how do you transcend this? Because I personally just get mad and want to punch them in the nose.
Well, there's 2 schools of thought. One is they're gone. You know, they're Maoists. They have the little red book in their hand. You're not going to get them back.
It's a cult.
It's a cult. And the only thing that's going to adjust their ideological fixation is reality. I predict that this hashtag generation, because look, for everyone that's out there spinning their little New Year's toy in your reporter's face, and I've watched those clips and I'm horrified as somebody who believes in free speech and as an artist, because those people are going to be coming for me. Let's face it. It may not be tomorrow, but it's soon enough because I said the wrong thing on the wrong day because I was tired and I didn't take my X2 that day or whatever. You know what I mean? It's like to live like that, to live where every word is a landmine. You know what I'm saying? It's not the world I want to live in.
It's not a liberal world.
I grew up a liberal. I grew up a liberal. So it's odd to me.
The liberals I knew were always like, talk about whatever you want. Get it all out in the open. More freedom.
Hey, let's go back to, and I'm sure you could find this. Remember, was it around 1978? Okay, Skokie, heavily Jewish community north of Chicago. I was there growing up at the time when they let the KKK march down the street. And what was the big issue? It was a free speech issue. We don't like it. They're thumbing in our nose. But you know what? It's better to have an America where, you know, these idiots get to walk down the street and spout their hate.
We're better than them.
That's what it was. That's the world I grew up in. A liberal, democratically leaning Chicago that was about tolerance and free speech, not shut it down because it's unpleasant. And again, you haven't said this here, so it's not again. The lack of tolerance of ideas and other points of view is the great Achilles heel of the social justice warrior movement. They do not apply their philosophical bent across the board equally. That's what exposes them every time. And you guys are doing a great job of exposing that. But most people who are not down there at the rally and spinning their Twizzler and making up stories about, you know, ghosts that don't exist. And it's a lot of fantasy stuff going on there. I mean, it really is like, it could be a wizard world.
They just caught basically a gay pastor here in Austin in Whole Foods claiming the gay baker put fag on his cake. And they have like surveillance video now of the cake being delivered and it's not on there. I mean, now they're even targeting liberal places.
Okay, but that's a perfect jumping off point for what I really want to try to get at. Okay, what do most people do? Most people's relationship, like let's take my friend who's a HuffPo reader, okay? He in his heart is a classic liberal. He cares about everybody. He loves music from every race, creed, and color. Not a racist in his heart, okay? He reads that stuff, and he thinks by participating, by hashtagging, he's on the good team, right? So the people you got to get through to is the people who don't have the little red book yet, who do care about humanity and do care about free speech. And you have to get them to understand how their participation in those systems,
they're being inducted into a cult.
Absolutely. And nobody wants to admit that they're being fooled. Now, I work in professional wrestling, TNA Impact Wrestling on Tuesday nights on Pop Network. There's my commercial.
I've seen it. It's great.
Thank you. So, you know, what's the old Carney term? They're marks. What was the Carney idea? We're going to stage a fight. You know, it started in the carnivals in the 1900s. We're going to stage a fight. We're going to get the local yokels to believe that the kid from the sticks is going to fight the big guy, and if he can beat him, you know, and that's how professional wrestling started, believing that what you were witnessing was real.
And you suspend disbelief.
Yes. Well, that's what we have. We have a world of suspended disbelief, right?
I want to play a short clip we can talk over of just a few social justice warriors. And what's amazing is people will talk to them and go, listen, I don't even support Trump, but I support free and open elections. What about Bernie Sanders? And they just spit in our reporter's face and spit on somebody else just because they just want to hate somebody. And they literally are like a dumb Klan guy that just pulls over on some black guy walking home from work and kills them because they're black. They want to just project something onto you.
Let's flip the script here for a second, okay? And this is I'm going to try to say this in a sort of hypothetical Star Wars holodeck type of way, okay? If we could transport back to, you know, a much more racist. I'm not saying America doesn't have a racist bent. Let's put that out there to start with. But let's go back to a time where racism was accepted. It was institutionalized, okay? If you could go back to Selma, 1932, and the Klan member is spitting in some person of color's face, don't you think that guy thought he was right too?
Yes.
Okay, so how is this any different?
It's not. And then you realize America had its problems, but the media doesn't teach. Every other country had stuff worse usually.
But to look to the media to educate us we're stuck on Cronkite. And even he was part of the deal. You know what I'm saying? We have to understand, we have to be our own judge and jury here.
Well, George Washington wasn't allowed in most of the private clubs or businesses where you had to be given entree to even operate as a landowner. So he was going under something lesser than, quote, black slaves. The point is that it was his will to be on an equal playing field that helped lead that revolution. So it's just all these forms of class and control, whereas it should be about free, open, human dialogue and free association.
Look, I work in a very rapacious and cruel business. You know, I'm 49 years old, and I'm 30 plus years in the game. I mean, I'm on the 0.00001% of the survivor list. Okay, it's a brutal business. It's a brutal business, and I'm not asking for.
And by the way, you look the best I've ever seen for a rock star in this 30 years.
Oh, God bless you.
My God, that chews
You're
him
a
up.
handsome man.
No. You're healthy, man. It's true.
Thank you. So what I'm trying to say is, I personally, even though I don't like it, I personally don't mind a capitalist society that leverages its power based on opportunity, because I believe in any socio-political capitalist system that existed, America has provided more freedom for more people for the longest period of time. So are there losers in that game? Yes. And at some point, even I'm a loser in that game. But I believe in that system more than a system that would be gamed for me. I would sell more records. I would have more opportunities if I would turn into one of those. Sure.
I was offered first $2 million a year, like 18 years ago, and then $5 million, and then even more. I mean, we're talking over $10 million a year contract to have shows bigger than Glenn Beck's, Limbaugh. I mean, I've been offered it all by the big syndicators.
So what are we?
And the point is that wasn't winning to me to have the biggest house and a private jet. Winning is to see 9/11 truth that I exposed now all over the newspapers 15 years later, to expose the tyrants that did this. I mean, I really think about myself with everybody else. I really have empathy, and it's not because I'm some loving goody two-shoes. That's a normal human instinct of someone that wants to live on a good planet.
Why do most people, like we all have extended friends and family, and we would probably classify most of those people as good-hearted, or we probably wouldn't have them in our lives, and I think that probably goes for anybody listening to us. Right?
Yes.
Okay, so what is happening that is allowing those people to be led down a path?
Goebbels said we give them dumbed-down propaganda that just gives them an excuse to be confused and lay down and do nothing.
Okay, so if you're trying to come at it from a different angle, because we see the rise of this social justice warrior movement as another propaganda kind of control arm, right? It's here to control us. It's the Maoists. Here they come, and they'll use kids, and they have no shame.
It's classic tyranny.
Okay, right. So what is allowing people who in their own hearts have a differing opinion to be led down this path? It's a collectivism. It's a peer pressure. It's shaming. It's guilting. It's
like gang member stuff. They're young. They're uninformed. They take them to the college. They put them under pressure. They send them to groups.
But again, that stuff can exist against a majority who deep down doesn't really, truly in their hearts believe.
So liberty lovers have to reach out to young people. They have to get involved in the community. They have to go be part of the student groups, whether it's Boy Scouts or whatever it is. We have to reach out. We have to go to the colleges. We have to volunteer. We all have to go and reach into these groups and break the centralized control that's coming in. Is that what you're saying? And stop clicking the pop culture?
I think there's stuff to be said there, but I think for most people that's probably more effort than they can make, because it's not a great economy and stuff like this. I think you have to look again, back to the InfoWars thing. Whether you realized it or not, you saw something coming long before other people, that the ultimate sort of collapse here was predicated on a psychological control.
Yeah.
The things you're still talking about are very real. Most people are in their community. Most people feel they are participants in their community on some level. Even if they're paying taxes, they're a participant.
Sure.
They don't like when the water bill goes up. We're all part of that. I'm talking about a more collectivist concept where, you have this merging of technology, the new robber barons, you know what I mean? And I know some of them personally. I hang out with them, So they're not real to me.
Sure, and they go along with the bigger robber barons because the minute they get out of line, they get crushed.
Right. Okay.
People don't know the ultra-rich are the most controlled.
So let's
most cloistered.
Let's break it down.
Yeah.
So that anybody walking down the street listening can understand what we're saying. At the highest levels of power, should we blame power for being powerful? Or should we blame the powerful being powerful? Most people are not powerful. So when you talk to them about these things, even though they can relate, and maybe they even have a personal reaction, there's not much they can do because it's the Borg, to use the Star Trek word. It's the Borg. So if you don't realize you're supporting the Borg, yet you feel oppressed by the Borg, the next natural question is, well, how do I not support the Borg?
So that's it. How do we begin? None of us are perfect, to pull out of the system.
Yes.
Plant a garden. Go to the local swap meet.
Sorry, I don't, that's important. And I don't mean to diminish what you're saying.
No, go ahead.
We're talking about the technocratic part of this equation.
So how do we engage there?
Okay. Pick your favorite company. Doesn't matter. I'm in these systems, right? So I have to dance carefully around these subjects, okay? Pick your favorite system and follow the money. Follow the money. Understand how your lack of curiosity or lack of knowledge about who you're...
So you're in the biggest defense contractor. How did you get into that?
Say that again.
No, I mean, a long time ago. It's just boom, suddenly, yeah.
Right. You have to look at the systems that you engage in. Pick your system. Is it a social media system?
And by the way, they'll attack you for that, but you just volunteered that.
I'll tell you something I've talked about publicly, so there's no new information here, but it illustrates the point. I quit Twitter about 6 months ago. I had about 300,000 followers.
I remember, yeah.
Okay. Twitter called me within the week. Why did you quit Twitter? I said, because you guys treat my participation the same as the guy who sits all day and hashtags F you this and F you that and F, you know what I'm saying? My vote and my participation in your system is worth more to you than some jerk who just tweets negative stuff all day. And you know that. And the guy said, yes, we do, which is why we're calling you. And I said, so you're basically using my credibility, my social status, my celebrity, my power, however you want to quantify it. You're using it to build up your IPO, right? Aren't you? Okay, so how do we, the people that bring real skin to the game, demand from the technocracy that we're part of, whether we like it or not? How do we demand? You have to hurt them where it hurts. It's a numbers game.
I want to come back then and talk about that, because you're absolutely right. We can't just sit here and bitch at the system.
That's what I'm saying.
When we're all part of it.
We are part of it.
Well, I agree. That's key, but I believe an even bigger key is what you first wanted to get into, and you have. How do you get the general person, you've talked a lot about it, to realize they're being manipulated, they're in a lower brainwave level near sleep? Billy, we got Leanne coming in. We'll get more into social justice warriors, this big time of change, things we're moving into. Clearly, the future battle space, as they call it, the Pentagon, is being shaped right now, a critical time. So many people that have served the establishment are realizing now they were set up. They were being set up to be obsolete. A technocracy's coming in, the robot takeover. This is the elite's own admissions. But if we're there putting out the narrative that humans have a choice and a destiny, and that folks can break out of their trance, make decisions with their actions, that can really change the future of this. And the Pentagon even admits in their own reports, like their Jade Helm report about mastering the human domain, stopping empowered individuals and new ideas, their own admission reads like an indictment. And of course, the military themselves are great people. It's so crazy, the most awake people are in the military, but then the Pentagon's own battle plan is like a treasonous letter against humanity.
Let's start here. Nature abhors a vacuum, okay? So pick your system: military, social control, the educational systems of control, okay? They're stepping into a space that's been created by the average American's abdication of their civic and social responsibility to help run a society which is has a reasonable level of control. You know what I'm saying? Like, I used to sit on steps when I was 18 years old with the kids with the spiked hair, and they talk about anarchy. And I'd say, that's great, but like, are you not going to have a toilet? So if we accept that the average American vision is, clean living and social systems and government.
And that social contract's being broken.
Yes, but it's being broken. Now, you've made fantastic arguments for why it's being broken, but it can only happen because the average American is letting it happen.
We don't stand up for ourselves.
Well,
let's just say it. Some people are gone. We don't revel in that fact like the establishment, but some of these people are dangerous zombies. So what do you do at the point?
They've been, to use your term and other people, guests on your show, they've been weaponized. Okay, so let's just keep it real simple. Let's say 20% of the people are awake. Let's say 20%.
About right.
Let's say 20% of the people are weaponized. Okay, so the fight is over the other 60%. Who thinks because they hashtag about somebody else across the world.
Or thinks because they live in a nice house, they're immune from it. No, you're not. The future of humanity is being decided.
Right.
Exactly.
So
because more are getting weaponized, folks. More are waking up, but more are weaponizing. Okay, there's a race.
So you have a series of choices. First, you'd have to identify the systems that you engage in and whether those systems are zero-sum games, whether they're positive or negative for you and your family. So take any social media system, Facebook, Snapchat, Twitter, Instagram. Is your participation in those systems actually making your life worse on some level? Now, most people would laugh at that. What does that mean? Just because I retweet a couple pictures or whatever, I mean, is that well, if you're supporting things that are ultimately hurting your community, then that argument can be made.
And if you're making your life useless crap on these, I only use Twitter and Facebook to attack them and to expose what they're doing. And still I feel guilty. Drudge says, hey, you shouldn't even do that. Only do your own thing. And more, I think he's right, because they already have algorithms cheating us and stopping us from getting stuff out.
Absolutely. I mean, Twitter's been caught suppressing and deleting things.
Well, they do it all the time.
And stopping.
So you think Drudge is right? I should just totally disengage?
There is certainly a movement in the technological community that's all going to be what they call over-the-top network. In essence, you would rather have 300,000 people coming to Alex Jones every day than you having to work in other systems and de facto supporting those systems. Now, those arguments can go either way, and I couldn't advise you one way as a friend what is better. I'm involved in those systems as well. So what I would argue for is, let's call it a conscientious participation. If you are a
wow, that's a good. Oh, stay there. We'll come back in 70 seconds. Conscientious. Wow, that's powerful. Stay with us. Billy Corgan's our guest. Oh, his Facebook. We put his Facebook up on screen. We're using the enemy system. What's your Facebook again? It's huge.
No idea.
Oh yeah, it's big. We'll put it up. I think we should use these. The censorship is ratcheting in now. And we were always there before it got really bad. But we're going to complain about it while they drowned us, while they push our head under the water. Because they say, oh, it's our platform. In fact, the media is even cheerleading Facebook to, hey, censor people against Trump and things. You know, it's your platform. But you advertise it's our little safe space to share our life with others. If I'm not violating your terms of service, well, now their terms of service says you can't disagree with someone, Billy.
Right. So go back to the idea of conscientious participation. Is that system that you're engaging in, is that actually helping to enslave you and take you away from the world and or America that you want to live in? Or is it empowering you? And then you have to make those decisions. I
only use Facebook and Twitter to inject that it's the Matrix, kind of like a warning, sign, or an airplane flying over dropping leaflets over Nazi Germany. Does that make sense?
Yes, but I guess what I'm coming at is the soccer mom who's got 2 kids. She's overburdened. She loves Facebook because she gets to look at her sister's
Or Leanne being mean to me during the break.
No, I'm saying is, and I'm not even trying to demonize anybody because you can take those things 50 different ways. And most people, although they can relate to what they're saying, they don't really understand how it affects them and or is how, look, it's a numbers game. If 10% of people left any social system right now, that would be critical damage against those systems. I'm not calling.
You're talking about like a Facebook strike or a Twitter strike until they start behaving better. We need to use our power.
Look, I'm talking about people understanding that they have a lot more leverage in the system than they think.
Right.
Okay. So is your leverage to leave? Is your leverage to call for a boycott? Is your leverage to band together and try to create your own movements like you do, using those systems to your benefit? Not reducing yourself to what you would call the enemy, but actually rising above and calling for a higher conversation. So, for example, we can get into the minutiae and the weeds of every...
So tell Facebook you can screw me, but use some lubrication.
I'm not participating.
Oh, that's a joke.
Okay. Now you took me off my game.
I'm sorry.
I was so dialed in.
Focus. Go back.
I don't know where to go with that. I don't.
No, I mean, we have to somehow leverage the fact that we exist on these platforms and not just let them program us.
Right. Well, when you're finding out that they have been subverting people's tweets and hiding conservative voices that are out there.
Sorry, I interrupt you. I remember what I was going to say. Look, the critical, if we want to kind of loop together social media structures, the social justice warrior movement, and all that kind of stuff, and even the rise of let's call it this other voice in that sort of discourse, which is using the sort of the old leftist tactics now on the right side, the Breitbarts and Dr. Savage, who's now risen to a prominence after a long and distinguished career. Okay, what stitches that all together? Free speech.
Mm-hmm.
Free speech. Once we lose free speech in this country, forget it. It won't matter what we think.
When Drudge visited, he said, look, they're coming after free speech next year. This is next year.
I was listening that day, and I think that was probably one of the most important moments in the history of your broadcasting. Because that shows you that he sees something, you see something, and together, it's like that, what they call that multiplier. 1 times 1 equals 100. You and Drudge on even the same wavelength, even if you guys don't agree about a lot of stuff, you guys on the same wavelength, that's the power. That's the force multiplier.
Huge amplification.
Right, but what is the common stitch there? Free speech. Once we give up free speech in this country, it is over. it is over. And
that's what the social justice warriors and the new left are pushing.
They're weaponized anti-free speech.
Right. Well, how does that make you feel?
Weaponized anti-free speech. Billy Corgan warns of weaponized anti-free speech.
Watch the clips. I am horrified to see young people who are coming from a variety of backgrounds, and you could argue, maybe even feel they have a right and/or a true story to feel that they're victims in a culture or a system that doesn't recognize their participation as it should. Those are important and relevant discussions that are ongoing in America, and will probably, hopefully they will end one day, but they won't end in our lifetime.
All right, stay there. And Leanne's going to pop in on this on the other side. Follow them on Facebook. Yes, Billy, you've dropped a lot of bombshells during the breaks. Recap some of what you've said about my generation, your generation versus some of the new generations, where this battle is. Then Leanne McAdoo, jump in here because you're going to be interviewing Billy for a special report we're going to air in a few weeks.
Well, again, I think when we're talking about most people that we know, the people in our families, our extended families, they don't see their participation in this. So
they just feel like they don't even exist.
Well, one of the most positive aspects of the Trump campaign is he connected the dots on those people who feel disenfranchised by the system. They look, and these are people in my family too, whether you agree with the political ideology. They sit there and say, look, I paid my taxes, I've raised my kids, I've worked hard. Why am I being asked to carry some additional burden here? Like, why are we not having this conversation? Why am I being guilted into something?
Why am I not celebrated for working 60 hours a week for 40 years?
Why is, and you and I have talked about in the past, the disintegration of the family vis-a-vis the media culture. The man is always dumb and made fun of, and like even commercials where people get like electrocuted. I mean, what kind of culture are we in now where it's like funny to watch somebody get electrocuted? And oh, by the way, buy insurance. That was
I'm not bashing transsexuals, but they have this RuPaul thing where she's driving race cars and eating fetuses. It's just all this celebration against life.
Again, what can the average person do to not assist something that they consciously or unconsciously are participating in this is actually hurting them?
So realize there's a system hurting you, figure out how to not be part of it. That's the beginning of coming out of the trance?
Yes, because then you start to see how you've been deluded. Look, nobody wants to admit that they've been had. Let's go back to the wrestling analogy. Nobody wants to admit they're a mark. If you go to a wrestling event and you know it's not real, or you go to a movie and know that they're not actually flying in a spaceship next to Quantar or whatever, you're part of the game. You're laughing along.
Clandathu.
What's that?
Clandathu.
Thank you.
But a lot of people literally think it's real. I guess so.
Okay, but wait, stop. So when they watch the political system playing out as it is now, they think that that's real. They don't realize that that's a CGI. What's going on in the presidential campaign is just as CGI as anything else.
Sure. So as the facade drops, what's going to happen?
Well, the people in control are either going to double or triple down on the lie and spend a lot more capital and energy to convince you and you and you and they that no, nothing to see here. You use that joke all the time. Droid, move along, that whole bit. Okay. Or, because look, once you admit to a lie, you know what hits the fan. And this thing has been puffed up to the point where when it goes, it's gonna be very messy.
I agree. Leanne McAdoo, any questions for Mr. Corgan?
Well, I just think, on that note of contributing to certain social systems and things, Twitter, for instance, it has the ability to connect a lot of people and create these movements. But we talked earlier about how now it seems sort of the powers that be have figured out how to control those movements, or they see, the zeitgeist, this is happening.
Sure, they're testing, steering it, sabotaging
it.
it.
And so Twitter, for instance, back in the day, could get a lot of people out for revolutions. Now they just use a hashtag and they're doing their part.
Look, imagine you're sitting somewhere in some central command system like you are here, and you have access to all the analytics. And just by pushing a button or removing a hashtag, you can affect the power to corrupt something to reflect your political ideology.
That's a good point, because we can literally start memes and a lot of stuff. If we wanted to be deceptive, it'd be dangerous.
Right, but Jack, who's the Twitter guy, can suppress the hashtag. If he doesn't want your certain movement to get any traction, that doesn't have to trend in America or wherever you are.
That's right.
Okay, for those who know and you continue to participate in those systems, you are basically saying that's okay. Mm-hmm. And we've blown past so many stop signs in the last 7 to 10 years where government spying and all this stuff, and people just kind of shrug and say, well, it's nothing to do with me. Okay. Now, as the system is doubling and tripling down on its systems of control, people are going to have to either recognize that they're part of a system, or they're going to want to continue in their particular trance. We're talking to the people who intuitively feel uncomfortable with the system as it exists. They know that it's not going to add up to be the world and the society that they want their children to grow up in.
So we need to organize and say we want to change the system.
I think you need to identify those things that are very simple for people to do.
Democratize the big blocks like Google and Facebook and Twitter and Apple, and say, realize you're feeding us the agenda we want. Just admitting there's an agenda is the beginning of change. Or
like Matt Drudge said, get out of these internet ghettos. They're trying to corral you and control you.
Well, that goes back to that question, yeah.
Okay, so what do you say to the soccer dad, to be a PC here? Okay, now it's a soccer dad. We've covered everybody.
A soccer person.
Thank you, soccer person.
Purple penguin.
Thank you, purple penguin.
I'm sorry, it's a purple penguin at a soccer game.
Okay, what do you say to the purple penguin who still wants to be on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram because they like
Look how you use the word I say now. I like that power. I say it's a green penguin now. This week, change it.
You tell me the code words.
Green penguin or you're racist.
I don't want to offend.
I don't want to offend anybody.
Offensive.
I have to love everyone now, right? What do you say to that person who says, yes, I understand what you're saying, Alex. Yes, I understand what you're saying, Leanne, but I still want to participate in the system. You've got to give them more information so they can make a decision based on their own self-interest. When you talk about big picture stuff, not everybody can relate. It's too big a picture for them.
Well, I think they need to realize big picture. More freedom for everybody means more freedom for them.
And I'm not insulting anybody's intelligence.
No, I agree. I hear you.
I am not a professional NFL quarterback. I can't see what Peyton Manning sees on the field in the last play of the Super Bowl. He spent 57,000 hours studying film, so he can see that guy's going to break open where you and I wouldn't, okay? You and I have spent 57,000 hours examining certain parts of the entertainment or the governmental structure. We can see things breaking long before anybody else can. That's why somebody like Roger Stone at this point is so informative, not only for what his intel on the Trump inner machinations, but how he sees the political system.
What I like about him is he's always told me the truth, and it's all come true. Most politicos like lie and spin. That guy is amazing. I mean,
so I like listening to somebody like Roger Stone because he gives me that quarterback read on the field at the actual street level of the politics.
And he actually gives you what the quarterback's really seeing. Most politicos lie to you about what they're seeing. That's the big.
So that's why I like this idea of what we discussed behind the scenes. We'll wait to reveal. That's why I like the idea so that we can give people that read on the field at a cultural level. So they can see when they click
I want to do it. Let's make sure it happens.
When they click on so-and-so rips so-and-so, and they click on that, they have to understand the actual cost of that.
And we're going to teach them the read and from a professional view what we've learned and show them how they're being manipulated.
That is true empowerment. You talk about...
I've always wanted to analyze the propaganda. You're right. And like 80% of the propaganda is in entertainment.
I wrote you that day because you say a lot of things in your rants.
Babbling.
In your babbling. Your green penguin rambling. You say a lot of things, and sometimes you flip past them because it's coming at you so fast. You know, it's like you see the sign, you comment, and you move on to the next thing. That day that you said 80 to 90% of the propagandizing is in the media entertainment complex, that was one of the most dead-on things you've ever said. That is the route where most people live.
And I'm stating the obvious, but no one's talking about it.
Why do you think the politic game is being presented like it's just another reality show?
Beauty pageant.
Why, when Trump would blow up Megyn Kelly, why would they have him back on the next morning? Because it's pound for pound dollar.
Wow.
Follow them.
Well, we're almost out of time. I know you and Leanne are going to do an interview. You've been very gracious with your time. You're playing tonight in Austin. I know you're playing all over the country. Folks can find out about the tour at Smashing
I think
Pumpkins.
it's pretty much all sold out, but thanks for coming.
And you will be playing Houston tomorrow, even after they're devastated.
As far as I know, yeah. Fans have been asking about Houston because of what's going on with the weather.
The flooding is amazing here. We've got 2 minutes left. Leanne, a couple questions, because I know you're about to do an interview.
Well, I think it's just interesting to, as you were saying, forgive people who are still sort of in this trance. Look at what they're up against. Even with everything going on with the delegate rigging.
They're set in front of a TV at birth.
That's totally normal. Your vote, your vote doesn't count. Trump's so stupid for not understanding how the delegate rigging, like they're just selling it that it's normal.
Okay, look. Trump is known to most people because he was on a TV show. The way he talks to people is learned from all those years.
Oh, it's dumbed down on purpose.
Okay. He's
the guy behind the scenes is super smart.
He's obviously a smarter communicator at the business level than he is the way he talks to, like, when you watch his speeches, it's like, it's all sound bites, right? So he's understood and he understands that patois. So that's why the media is presenting those things like, oh, hey, your vote doesn't count. Let's move on. Right. Because that is literally the next installment of the reality show.
Right.
It's just another installment of the reality show. Tune in next to find out whether or not your vote does matter.
Yeah.
You know?
Let me ask you this. Why are they so scared of Trump?
Well, I mean, the simplest argument to me is that he is a true outlier in the dangerous sense of he won't play by any particular rule.
But he knows the game.
Maybe he does, and maybe he doesn't.
Maybe he just tapped into the zeitgeist and he doesn't even know.
Hey,
maybe he just tuned into this show one too many times.
We've all
that's really what happened. I'm sorry.
Let's be real simple here for the sake of argument. We all belong to a club, a clique of friends, a team, and here comes the newcomer, and they say, we don't know if we want you on your team because you're going to mess up our dynamic. Mm-hmm. He messes up their dynamic.
They're like, we've paid our dues. We hijacked and took over the world. Who do you think you are?
Look, you can literally watch the machinations of these campaigns and the RNC and all that stuff, and then there's the Democratic version too, as they have to keep adjusting their game plans and their strategies to account for unforeseen circumstances.
That's right. All is well. All is not well in Camelot.
That tells you they are not as in control as they like to pretend.
That's why they want to shut down the internet.
Leanne McAdoo, you guys are awesome. You're going to go do a tape interview that'll air in a few weeks. This was all live. Andrew Wakefield, another great hero, is coming in. Billy, thanks for the time. It's always great talking.
Thank you, Alex, and thanks to everyone for listening.
And I'm excited about the discussion of the collaboration. That is very exciting.